Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping us reach 1,000 subscribers. We're now aiming for 2,000, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. The specific details of this story, time, place, and other identifying information will be kept vague for obvious reasons. Also, this isn't my personal story. It belongs to a friend who gave me permission to share it. He swears it's true, and honestly, it's way too disturbing not to be, in my opinion. My grandfather served in World War II and was part of a platoon that liberated a concentration camp. After the war, he worked for my country's intelligence agencies, though he never disclosed exactly what he did. I suspect it was something classified. When my brother and I were in high school, this was in the 60s or 70s, he got caught groping a girl. Back then, he got little more than a slap on the wrist. He was 15, I was 14. He even bragged about it to his friends. To be honest, at the time, I didn't see the issue either. My mom, however, was furious and told our grandfather. That night, he invited just my brother and me over for dinner. Before saying anything, he casually asked if what he had heard was true, almost as if he were proud. My brother, still full of himself, proudly admitted it. Without saying much, Grandpa brought out a hammer and 3 long roofing nails. Then, he told us a story I will never forget. During the war, after liberating the camp, he and his unit encountered one of the ranking officers still there. By that time, they were all aware of what had been happening in those camps, the horrors inflicted on innocent people. While sweeping through, my grandfather entered the officer's room and found a young girl, beaten, naked, chained, with a swollen abdomen. It was immediately clear what had been done to her. Grandpa and his squad captured the officer, stripped him, and tied him to a wooden chair. Then, Grandpa ordered everyone to leave the room and block the hallway. No one was to enter, no matter what they heard. For half an hour, he sat in front of the officer in silence, just staring at him. Then, slowly and methodically, he took the hammer and drove a nail through each testicle, making sure they didn't burst. The 3rd nail went through the officer's meat and into the chair. Without another word, he left the room, barring the door from the outside. He never found out if the man survived or if someone eventually found him. Grandpa told this story in a cold, detached tone, neither proud nor remorseful. Then, he turned to us and said something that chilled me to my core. Monsters attract other monsters, and they tend to get what they deserve. Are you going to be monsters? Terrified, my brother and I shook our heads and said no. To drive the point home, Grandpa slammed one of the nails into the table. See that you don't. Now go home. He never mentioned that story again, and he never spoke to us in that cold, ruthless tone after that night. It was as if the conversation had never happened. But the lesson stuck. My brother ended up apologizing to the girl, and we both went on to live normal lives. Grandpa passed away years ago, but we will never forget him. I work in the UK for a large tech company in software support. My team is global, and I've been in this role for about a decade. I genuinely enjoy my job, aside from one major issue, Shane. When I joined, I wasn't exactly a rookie. I had 7 years of industry experience. While I was new to the company, I was already comfortable with the technology I'd be working with. Most of my team, about 30 people, were welcoming and supportive. Except for Shane. Shane was the so-called team guru, the go-to guy when things got tough. He'd been with the company for nearly 40 years and was only a few years from retirement. Although we all worked remotely, he was considered part of the office furniture. At first, I found him extremely knowledgeable. He almost always had the answers to obscure questions. Over time, I built strong relationships with my colleagues, including my best friend on the team, Mel. She had as much experience as Shane, and in my opinion, she was just as knowledgeable. One day, Mel and I were chatting about work when the conversation drifted to our team members. I mentioned that I had never met anyone in person, and she told me she had met Shane once at a tech conference in New York. She described his severe health issues. He was around 450 pounds, relied on oxygen, and was on multiple medications. His plan was to hang on until early retirement, so he wouldn't have to worry about medical insurance anymore. That seemed fair enough, and we moved on to other topics. The real trouble started about 2 years into my tenure. Our company shifted direction, introducing new software applications, and we all underwent training. I saw this as a great opportunity. Since no one had prior experience with these new tools, I had an equal chance to become proficient. I threw myself into learning, but Shane showed little interest. He stuck to the old legacy systems, and it was clear he was frustrated as his status as the guru began to fade. In our team meetings, his annoyance was obvious. This wasn't personal. Technology evolves, and you have to keep up. But Shane started taking out his frustration on me. He began nitpicking at every opportunity. If a customer call ran over and I was late to a meeting, He'd interrupt with sarcastic comments like, "Oh look, Ordo's Deluxe has finally decided to join us." Never mind that he'd done the same thing before. He also made email exchanges unnecessarily difficult. Anytime I sent something to him and our boss, he'd reply with some unrelated complaint, completely derailing the conversation. One day, Mel called me and asked what was going on between Shane and me. I told her honestly. I had no issue with him, but for some reason, he had it out for me. She said she'd try to figure out why. And so, the tension continued for years. I continued being the go-to person for the new software, and Shane continued doing everything he could to undermine me, painting me in the worst possible light. Then, one day, a major incident occurred. One that could have cost the company millions in SLA fines if not resolved quickly. Our manager split the team into groups to troubleshoot specific areas, and unfortunately, she paired me up with Shane. I wasn't thrilled, but I was a professional, so I just got on with it. We jumped on a call and began working through the issue. As the call progressed, it became painfully clear why Shane disliked me. He knew absolutely nothing about the new application. He hadn't put in any effort to learn it at all. Every time I asked him to check something, he needed step-by-step guidance, even for the most basic tasks. Eventually, I just shared my screen and told him to watch. I navigated through the system's inner workings, combing through countless logs while explaining my process to him. Eventually, I found the root cause, an issue with a recent patch we had deployed. The moment I identified it, Shane abruptly dropped from the call. I didn't think much of it at the time. We use Skype for business, and it could be glitchy, so I assumed it was a technical issue. I continued working, making notes on the necessary steps to resolve the problem. Company policy dictated that no patches could be rolled back without senior management approval, so I documented everything and rejoined the main call. I wasn't worried. Bad patches happen now and then, though they rarely had this level of impact. But the moment I rejoined the call, I was blindsided. The incident manager immediately tore into me. I was completely confused until I realized what had happened. Shane had rejoined the call before me and told everyone that the outage was caused by an error in my deployment. He claimed that he had figured out the fix and that I had outright refused to implement it. I was furious. He had described the issue accurately, but only because I had literally walked him through how to find it. Worse, I had even mentioned to him what I suspected would fix it. The problem was that, while our immediate team knew the truth, knew who actually had the expertise, Shane's long-standing reputation still carried weight with people outside our department. Since this incident was a high-profile crisis, over 100 people were on the call, including senior managers 2 or 3 levels above our team. Shane painted me as an incompetent, reckless idiot, and they believed him. Despite my manager's objections, I was formally disciplined and given a verbal warning. Meanwhile, Shane was praised for steering the company away from disaster and was even given a commendation. I was furious. Not long after, Mel called me. She was stunned. Shane had been bragging to her about putting that smart-ass punk in his place. She asked him what he meant, and that's when the truth came out. His real problem with me wasn't personal failure on my part. It was that he thought I had disrespected him by taking over his role as the guru for the new software. That had never been my intention. I hadn't stolen his position. He had refused to do the work to stay relevant. But to him, it didn't matter. I told Mel, half-jokingly, that she should have recorded the conversation. She laughed and pointed out that Skype shows when a call is being recorded. Shane never would have admitted to anything if he knew he was being monitored. That's when I had an idea. I decided to confront Shane directly. I messaged him on Skype, saying I wanted to talk. He responded with a smiley face and a casual sure. When I called him, I let him know up front that I was recording the conversation. Then, I went straight to the point. I accused him of lying about the major incident and asked why he seemed to have a personal vendetta against me. As expected, he denied everything. He took the classic approach. "I'm sorry you feel that way." Then, he claimed he would need to discuss it with our boss. That's when I said, "Hold on a second." I turned off the Skype recorder. Then I said, "Skype isn't recording now, and we both know exactly what you did." His mask slipped instantly. He admitted, with no hesitation, that he had deliberately thrown me under the bus. He justified it by saying that I needed to respect the longer-serving employees and know my place. Then he added that he would do it again in a heartbeat. I didn't hold back. I called him a dinosaur who refused to adapt and was just coasting until retirement, doing the bare minimum. He didn't even deny it. He just scoffed and said he was only a couple of years away from retiring, and there was no way he was going to bust his ass learning some shiny new software. I paused for a moment. Then, casually, I asked, "Speaking of new software, have you ever heard of OBS?" Of course, he hadn't. I smiled and said, "You should Google it." I hung up on him. Not long after, the messages started pouring in. Shane was begging me not to use the recording. He said that if he got fired, he would lose his retirement package and medical benefits. I told him to go himself, that he should have thought about that before trying to get me fired. Without much hesitation, I passed everything along to the relevant channels. The wheels were set in motion, and sure enough, after a thorough company investigation, Shane was terminated. Later, I heard from Mel that he had tried to take early retirement to keep his benefits, but the request was denied. Eventually, word spread that he had significant debts and had been relying on his retirement package to stay financially afloat. Without a job or his benefits, he couldn't afford the medical treatment he desperately needed. His skills were so outdated that getting another job, especially an online one, was nearly impossible. About 6 months later, Mel told me that Shane had passed away due to his ongoing health issues. For a while, I felt conflicted. Sharing that recording had undoubtedly contributed to his downfall, and, in some way, to his death. But how bad should I really feel about it? I was a young professional trying to build my career, and he had actively tried to destroy me. Maybe I could have held back when he pleaded with me. Maybe I should have given him a chance to walk away with his dignity intact. But he was old enough, and should have been wise enough, to know better than to play those childish, malicious games. If I had known it would lead to his death, maybe I would have done things differently. But one thing is certain, I will never treat a new employee the way he treated me. Maybe, in the end, breaking that toxic cycle is the one positive thing to come out of all this. Ronnie was a serial cheater throughout high school. But he was more than that. He was manipulative. He tore through relationships, often juggling 4 at a time, with each lasting only a few weeks or months before the girls caught him cheating. When they did, he would leak their private photos or expose their secrets, ruining their reputations before moving on to a new set of victims. But he was charming. He knew exactly how to shift the blame, often hiding behind the excuse of his father's failing health. And somehow, despite knowing all of this, I fell in love with him. I was his side piece through it all. Morally, I knew it was wrong, but I had never been in love before. Besides, he wasn't lying to me like he did to the others. He was honest about cheating. I thought I was special. 2 years later, he claimed he had fallen in love with me, too. He vowed to change, swore he'd stop cheating, even gave up corn, all to prove his devotion. I believed him. We even started planning a future together. But Ronnie was smart about his manipulation. When friends suddenly blocked me or accused me of being abusive, I assumed it was a misunderstanding. When private details about my life started circulating, I thought I must have let something slip in conversation. I never suspected that Ronnie had been the one planting the seeds, telling people I was the very things he secretly was. Late at night, he would insult me, then claim he didn't remember in the morning. He would slip cruel, cutting remarks into casual conversations, just subtle enough to make me doubt myself, but never enough to make me question him. And when words weren't enough, he would slap me. Never when I was angry, only when I said things he didn't like. A sharp, unexpected strike across the face that left me too shocked to react. Then he'd laugh it off, insisting it was just a joke or just a playful tap. If I protested or told anyone, he would gaslight me, saying I had misunderstood him. Midway through our relationship, I took a job in another state. Long distance was hard, but I loved my work. Still, after 8 months, I made the ultimate sacrifice. I gave up my dream, my home, my pets, and my job to move 1,000 miles back to be with him. I had nothing. No money, no security. Only him. 3 months later, I caught him cheating. It was through an old Twitter account. He had asked another girl on a date. I was hurt, but I forgave him. It didn't seem that bad, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. 2 months later, I checked his phone and found several saved Reddit accounts in his browser. I vaguely remembered he used Reddit for corn before, and a bad feeling settled in my stomach. I started guessing his usual email and password combinations. I got 5 hits. What I found was worse than I imagined. For 6 months, he had been using those accounts to cheat, lurking in hookup and porn subreddits, exchanging explicit messages with strangers. When I confronted him, he screamed at me. He insisted that he had already apologized for cheating months ago, and that I needed to stop making him sad. He claimed he had only kept cheating because he was afraid I would leave and wanted a backup plan. I spent the next 10 days sobbing. I had given up everything for this man, my youth, my dreams, my security. And even after all of that, I had never been enough for him. His response? Anger. He yelled at me nearly every day, complaining that my crying was annoying and that my depression made him uncomfortable. Behind my back, he told our friends that I was guilt-tripping him over something that didn't even happen. Then, something inside me snapped. I had wasted my high school years and early adulthood being walked on by this man. It was time to return the favor. I went back to Reddit and counted every girl he had flirted with, messaging them one by one. I began voice recording every conversation we had. I screenshotted every text. Then, I downloaded Tinder and Bumble. For every girl he had cheated on me with, I had my own secret rendezvous. In social settings, I played the long game. I subtly acted more withdrawn, dropping hints in front of friends about how Ronnie had yelled at me the night before. I confided in them, showed them proof. Slowly, I exposed him to everyone in his circle. Then, I took it further. I emailed his mother, his grandparents, and even his employer. I sent them recordings of him screaming at me. I asked his boss whether his company condoned domestic abuse. His mother held me as I cried, confessing that she had been cheated on by Ronnie's father. Ronnie, of course, tried to shift the blame again. He claimed he was sick, that his depression made him do it. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I had everything, every text, every admission, every sick little game he had played with me and countless other women. I gathered it all into one massive group chat with his past victims, and together, we exposed him. Facebook, screenshots, every single political group in our area, his dream career path. I joined them all, made friends, and casually revealed the truth about Ronnie's past. And he still had no idea what was coming. I had done it. That night, he spent hours screaming and crying, confused about why everyone had turned against him. He had lost his job, his friends and family wouldn't speak to him, and he was being publicly shamed on social media. Even his political group had kicked him out. That's when I finally told him, it was me. I had exposed him, and I was leaving. While all this was unfolding, I had secretly withdrawn the little money I had from our shared bank account. I had also reached out to distant relatives, securing a place to stay. I was done. He had nothing left to manipulate or control. I don't have a neat, satisfying conclusion to this story, but I just want to say, screw you, Ronnie. I wasted my youth being abused, and I refuse to tolerate it any longer. The security guard's revenge. I work as a security guard in a supervisory role, coordinating security, cleaning, maintenance, and other building operations. My office is a 60-square-meter room that smelled like a mix of nicotine, sweat, oil, coffee, old food, and, somehow, dead possum. The building once belonged to the government, but was sold to a private company. It had state-of-the-art security systems, key-card access, automatic doors, high-resolution cameras, and centralized controls. From my desk, I could do it all with a single mouse click. Lock doors, control lighting, monitor and zoom cameras. Even the elevators were under my command. Visitors needed a special pass, ID verification, and approval before they could enter. Security at the front desk would call me, and I would reserve an elevator for them. Everyone understood the rules, except for one particularly entitled delivery guy. He was in his early 20s, a smug student who acted as if the world revolved around him. Every morning, he made a scene, demanding we recognize him and let him through without the usual procedures. He parked his van wherever he pleased, blocking entrances, driveways, even the CEO's parking space. And, of course, when the CEO was angry, guess who got the blame? Me. One of my co-workers, a shy but kind woman in her early 30s, bore the brunt of his abuse. She was the type who always tried to help, always looking for solutions. But this guy broke her. One morning, his outburst was so violent that it took 2 maintenance workers and another security officer to pull him away from her desk. She came to my office, sobbing and devastated, ready to quit on the spot. I did my best to calm her down, got her a fresh coffee, and reassigned her shift to ensure she wouldn't have to see him in the mornings. She agreed to stay, but the damage had been done. Then I found out something even worse. He had threatened her. According to the maintenance staff, he had said, "I'll follow you home and teach you how to serve a real man." That was it. That was the moment I decided to take him down, setting the trap. I spent that night combing through security footage, gathering evidence of his disgusting behavior. Everything checked out. He had urinated outside a side entrance, spat on the floor, vandalized a wall with a marker, and generally acted like an animal. The plan came together over the weekend. I told maintenance I needed elevator 3 reserved on Monday morning for a special task. This meant it would be out of order from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. They weren't happy about the timing. It would disrupt business. But when I explained the real reason, their frowns turned into smirks. "You sneaky scumsucker," one of them said, laughing. "You're gonna trap him, aren't you?" I just gave an innocent smile. Monday morning arrived, and sure enough, His Royal Highness parked directly in front of the main entrance, ignoring the no loading, no parking signs. He stormed up to the front desk, barking orders and throwing his usual tantrum. The receptionist called me, and I sent elevator 3 to the lobby. As always, he stepped in. The doors closed. The elevator began its ascent. Then, just as it reached the 8th floor, I clicked my mouse once. Power cut. The elevator stopped dead. The normal lights shut off, leaving only dim emergency lighting. He was trapped. For the next few minutes, we watched as he pressed every button, panicking. Nothing worked. He mashed the alarm button like he was playing an old arcade game. No response. The intercom stayed silent. Then, he pulled out his phone, thinking he could call for help. "Oh, you sweet summer child." Elevator 3 was special, a fire-resistant, reinforced concrete shaft designed for emergency responders. It was practically a Faraday cage. No signal, no calls, no escape. I took a sip of my coffee and called the maintenance guy. "Got him?" he asked. "Yep." Within minutes, my office was packed with 8 grinning maintenance workers, all eager to watch the show. I could barely contain my laughter, but I kept it professional, as any manager would. I grabbed the phone and connected to the elevator's intercom. I used my most unsympathetic voice and asked, "Excuse me, sir, did you press the alarm button?" He immediately began to panic, screaming that he had been trapped for hours. It hadn't even been 10 minutes. In a monotone voice, I informed him that there were some technical issues, but he would be rescued in 5 to 10 minutes. I reassured him that his life wasn't in danger, but I made sure to add a slightly uncomfortable undertone before hanging up. This set him off. He started banging on the doors, pressing all the buttons, and even trying to force the doors open with his hands. I turned around to see the maintenance guys practically wetting themselves with laughter. After 5 minutes, I called the intercom again. This time, he was absolutely frantic, sounding claustrophobic, screaming for me to let him out and hurling racist insults my way. I told him to calm down, then asked him for some help. He froze, stunned, unsure of what I meant. I asked him to touch the walls of the elevator to check if they felt warm. After touching all 4 walls, he yelled that the elevator was on fire. I screamed, "The fire spreads quickly. You're the only one in the cabin," and slammed the phone down. Now he was in full panic mode, sweating, desperate, and even soiling himself. The maintenance crew was ready with their tools. I switched the power back on, and with the elevator moving again, I made my way to meet him in the basement. The sudden movement of the elevator terrified him even more, and he thought he was going to die. I grabbed my black gloves and flashlight, running to catch up. I was just in time as the elevator reached our level. The doors opened, and he stumbled out, soaked in sweat and urine. He was so disoriented, he collapsed straight into my arms. I pushed him away and slapped him across the face to snap him out of it, trying to focus him on what needed to happen next. In my deepest, most terrifying voice, I said, "You threatened one of my coworkers. You wanted to rape her." The 8 maintenance workers were standing behind me, looking brutal and ready for action, tools in hand. I pointed my flashlight at his face, ready to escalate if necessary. I made sure to let him know that accidents could happen. Slips on the stairs, faulty elevator doors, or worse. I reminded him, "This is your last warning. If we ever see your face around here again, things will get real ugly." He was completely stunned, sobbing and shaking. He couldn't process what was happening. Finally, he slumped to the ground like a rag doll, having a complete mental breakdown. We gave him one final warning. This was all just a dream. If you ever file a complaint, we have your full name, your address. Things will get much worse for you. We escorted him to the bathroom to clean himself up. He was practically begging us to let him go. He promised never to act like that again. He was completely broken. As a final slap, one of the guys who escorted him out made sure to issue him a juicy parking ticket on his way out. The next day, he showed up with his head down, tail between his legs. I asked the front desk if anything seemed off. They said he was strangely polite and friendly, a total 180 from his usual self. I'd say mission accomplished. The next few weeks went by without any issues. Then, a new delivery guy showed up. He didn't ask about the previous one, but he seemed cool right from the start. The only downside to all of this was the paperwork, missing security logs, missing camera footage, and I received a formal warning from the managers. They said I should never schedule maintenance during security critical hours. As I was about to leave, my manager made a comment that was laced with a sarcastic undertone. "We don't want any tragic accidents, right?" I closed his door, hearing him laugh as I walked away. He knew exactly what had happened. A few months later, my coworker, the one who had been abused by this guy, quit. She couldn't handle the stress and now works at a women's clothing store. As for me, something had changed. I was now nicknamed Lift Boy around the office. The story spread quickly, and while many laughed, the core staff respected me for taking a stand. P.S. I knew I crossed the line, but honestly, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.